Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
I can't believe how fast the week is going by, folks. Here we are, already a Thursday. Some of you know not happy about it. I don't mind one way or the other. I like every day. And we'll be here and execute assigned host duties flawlessly and serve humanity, whatever the day is, and wherever we are. Doesn't matter as long as I'm here. Doesn't matter where here is. We're everywhere, in all four corners of the world, household name and all that. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. So Snerdley walks in today, and he's bringing me the stuff that he has found on the Internet that he thinks I should be interested in. And he's fuming. He's literally fuming. Something McCain said or did just had him, smoke was coming out of the ears. So I calmed him down out there, and I said, what is it? He explained it to me. And I said, it kind of goes with two or three other things I have here. First is this. Let's unpack this. And look, none of this is going to be a surprise. It's exactly what you think it is. It's exactly, there's no way McCain wants the Trump administration to succeed. And in policy or anything. McCain, is purely personal now, and it's obvious. McCain can run around all day and say, I hope he fails, and nobody cares. But let it be said about Obama, of course, and the world has a conniption fit. There are more polls out today. Let's start with this. There are more polls out this morning that show that if the election were held today, that Trump would still win. There's another analysis of the vote in Virginia, that the Trump vote held, that it was there. The same number of people who voted for Trump in 2016 showed up and voted for Ed Gillespie on Tuesday. So there wasn't any deterioration to speak of. If there was, it was minuscule. The Trump vote showed up. The Trump vote has not been dispirited. Now, I call it the Trump vote. Let's call it the Republican vote for now, because I'm sure there are some Trump voters, Republicans in Virginia, who didn't show up and vote for Gillespie. In case you missed it, we had a guy call yesterday. And I'll tell you, if Trump voters are this sophisticated across the board, it's fascinating. This guy said, and he used the pronoun we to describe other Trump voters. He wasn't just talking about himself. He said, look, we made a calculation out here, and there's simply no way that we are going to vote for an establishment Republican. There's no way. Because if we do, and the establishment Republican wins because of us, then the establishment Republicans are not going to learn any lessons. They're going to think they can screw us and continue to ignore us, and in the end, we'll still vote for them. So this guy was saying that there's a bunch. He didn't say how many. Of course, he doesn't know. But he was clearly indicating that Trump voters, hell or high water, they are not going to help the establishment. And yet the Republican vote was there. The Republican vote in Virginia, which I'm calling the Trump vote, didn't lose anything. The deterioration wasn't there. What happened was that it's a blue state, and there are a lot of Democrats that showed up. And don't forget, this state has been welcoming illegal aliens in for years as an electoral philosophy, and the governor there, McAuliffe, legalized felon voting, which affected 200,000 potential felons and their potential votes. That's tough to compete with. I don't think we have that many felons among Republican voters, and Democrats have no problem rounding them up at all. You ever stop to think of that? Democrats need a couple 100,000 votes from felons. It's easy. They know them intimately. Send out some kind of smoke signal and they show up. No, take that back. I didn't mean to. No. I'm just thinking of various secret communique techniques that Democrats might use to read the fellow. I did not mean Native Americans. You think we ought to bleep this? No, I nearly stepped in it there. The snowflakes out there, they're just waiting for stuff like that. I did not mean, I was just the first thing that came to my mind in terms of secret communications. Anyway, it's tough to compete against that. How many felons do you know, Snerdley? How many Republican felons do you know? How many people do you know that have died or been murdered or have murdered somebody else? You know one person, personally, you're not talking about something that we all know. You know one person that was murdered. Do you realize when the Clintons answer that question, it's in the 30s or 40s? Stop and think of that. I don't know any. Do I not know any? I mean, if I do, I could count them on one hand. But the Democrats have no problem rounding them up. Plus the things that they did to enable migrants, illegal immigrants, refugees, and all that. Make no mistake. I mean, that's one of the things that the McAuliffe machine did. So if the election were held today, Trump would still win nationwide. And I just deviated from that to point out the Virginia results. In fact, according to a Political Morning Consult poll, 82% of those who say they supported Trump last year would vote for him again if they had to do it over. That is more than those who say they would vote for Hillary. That number is 78%. So if the election were held today, people that voted for Trump, 82% would do it again, only 78% for Hillary, and this is why all of the polls show that Trump would win if the election were held today. But what these two numbers mean in the fictional or fictitious, the hypothetical election that would happen today, Trump would win by a wider margin nationwide if the election were held today. This matters, and I'm pointing this out to you because it flies in the face of the new media narrative, which is the Republicans are finished, that the Virginia vote means everybody's tired of Trump, fed up with Trump, embarrassed by Trump, and it's over. And it doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean anything. When you get right down to it, all it means is what happened in Virginia. It does not. It does not translate to other states. It does not travel, if you will, to other states. And yet the drive-bys, all they can talk about is the wave of resistance against Trump that swept so many Democrats into office yesterday. A virtual tsunami. Now, there's another narrative out there that I need you to know about in case you don't. The media has been pushing that yesterday's election show the Republicans desperately need to expand their base. That the Republicans, as currently constituted, no longer ever again have a prayer. Despite their own polling data showing Trump would beat Hillary by a wider margin today if the election was held again today. Despite all that, the Republicans are toast because the Democrats' base is broad and it's expanding and the Republican base is narrow and it's a bunch of bigots and racists and so forth. They say the Republicans are going to have to learn how to appeal to a wider audience. Now, if you look at some of these there may be something to this. I don't know. Look at some of these other headlines from yesterday. First, from thehill.com. First openly transgender state legislator elected in Virginia. A Breitbart headline. First openly transgender black woman elected to public office in the U.S. And my favorite, this is from The Advocate. And I'm just going to read what the headline says, okay? I'm going to be inoculated from this because I'm going to read what The Advocate's headline says. In the interest of accuracy, I'm just going to read what their headline is. With election of trans bi women, Palm Springs City Council now entirely queer. That's the headline in the ad. They're very proud of this. Now, we in polite society would say gay. But even that would offend many. The word is homosexual. But that's the news. The election of trans and bi women, Palm Springs City Council now entirely homosexual. And that's how the Democrats feel their base. Now, I'm just saying here that the drive-bys are saying that we need to expand our base. The Republicans need to. And if you look at these headlines and who's winning in Democrat race, you got transgender here, transgender African-American, gay, lesbian, and so forth. In Palm Springs, California, the entire city council is homosexual. Don't worry. There's no way. I mean, I'm not advocating. I'm trying to make a facetious point here. But, I mean, if you leave it to, I guarantee there'll be some people in the Republican establishment who will now think, yeah, we need to do this. We need to provide a home. We need to provide a comforting atmosphere for the tranny community and the gay community. But those people are voting Democrat anyway. Sticking with the same theme, new headline, Senate GOP plan would delay corporate tax cut until 2019. So what's happening now? The House tax cuts moving over to the Senate. And there are enough people in the Senate that hate Trump, like McCain and like Corker. If you heard this, the Republicans have shut down the investigation into Fusion GPS and the dossier. And the Democrats are starting their own independent investigation of it. I told you they're not going to let it go. They're not going to let it go if Trump is ever impeached. They're not going to let it go. No matter, you're going to be hearing about this for 10 years, no matter what happens in future elections. They glom onto something and they do not let it go. Now, the alternate headline for this headline, Senate GOP plan would delay corporate tax cut until 2019. What that means is Senate GOP plan would delay corporate tax rate and destroy the GOP in 2018. If this thing doesn't happen, if these tax cuts don't happen, if this bill doesn't get passed and sent up to the White House for signature, I don't know what these Republicans are. If they're thinking that the only guy that's going to be hurt by this is Trump, they've got it backwards. If they don't do this, if there is an effort to sabotage this, and it doesn't make it to Trump's desk for signature, it's not going to be Trump who suffers the most from this. But we always fall back to the question, do they care? You know, I will never forget, prior to the election, there were several establishment Republican types who very proudly said that they would be happy to lose the White House, happy to lose some elections, even for the next 5 or 10 years, if it meant keeping Trump out of anything. And if these people are not careful, they might get their wish. So here the tax cut plan is up there. It's been proposed, and here comes the first cold shower on it, which, I don't care what the specifics are. Maybe these people are thinking, hey, you know, we can gain some public favor if we trash the corporate tax cut. Because remember, the media has so affected Republicans inside the Beltway that they believe whatever the media says. And when the media says that the American people think X, Republicans inside the Beltway tend to believe it. So if the media is out saying that Americans are livid over the Republican tax cut, reducing the corporate rate, then Republicans inside the Beltway are going to believe it. And so they might think, you know what, we can gain favor, we can reach out, we can show, we can relate, we can show we care by criticizing and delaying the imposition of the corporate tax rate. I don't know, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt on that. But what this is ultimately going to do is crush the expectations of voters and anger them. And once you do that, then you've crushed the party. And as much as the Washington Republican establishment would like to think all of this is about Trump, it isn't. It's about voters. It's become obvious to me that the Republican establishment is not tuned to voters. They're tuned to other things. The Democrats, we know, aren't. The Democrats, and I think a large share of Republicans, are really attuned to donors and lobbyists, K Street special interests and so forth. As such, none of this is really about Trump. It's about voters, but not as far as the Republicans are thinking. It just so happens that Trump is in sync with Republican voters and independent, even some Democrat voters, which is, I've always thought that's what the Republicans claimed to want. That's why they supported amnesty, because they knew they had to broaden their base. So they went out and they support Democrat things to show they're not racist or bigots. You know the drill. But when it comes to applying that same kind of thinking with this tax cut reform bill, you can't find them behaving this way. I mean, it doesn't matter if Trump might sign off on a delay in the timing of the corporate tax rate. It would kill voter turnout. Trump's not on the ballot in 2018, just like Trump wasn't on the ballot in Virginia yesterday. But I know what they're thinking. I know they're thinking that Americans hate corporations because that's what the media says. The media says Americans hate corporations. The media says the Democrats hate corporations. And the media says everybody agrees with the Democrats. So whatever the Democrats think, that's what the American people think, and that's what the drive-by Republicans probably think as well. And so they think they can score some points here by delaying the implementation of the corporate tax rate. Here is a story from the Politicos by Alex Eisenstadt. Republicans face wrenching call running with or away from Trump. And another headline at thehill.com, Republican anxiety rises over 2018 midterms. We'll deal with these when we get back. Republican anxiety rises over the 2018 midterms. Distressed Republicans say Democrat victories across the country on Tuesday night show their congressional majorities are at risk in next year's midterms. Senator John McCain said he predicted the rough election night, said the party needs to make changes quickly before the midterms arrive. Unless we get our act together, we're going to lose. We're going to lose heavily. See? Unless we get our act together, we are going to lose heavily. These guys aren't winning diddly other than their local elections, but they're not winning diddly. These guys are not even tackling the opposition. They're not even facing the opposition. To these guys worried about what's going to happen to the Republican Party in the midterms, their enemy is Trump. Their enemy is their own party. The results, the midterms on Tuesday, this is according to thehill.com, offered a fresh bit of evidence of a political backlash against President Trump, which several Republicans said in combination with a failure to win legislative victories could cost the party the House majority. Tom Cole, Republican Oklahoma, said the best way they get run over by this train is to stand still. You remember after the election, after the presidential election, I just want to take you back 1 year to show you how quickly things change and how they are so unpredictable. After the presidential election last year, the narrative, and this is true even in the drive-by media, was the Democrats are in heap big trouble. They weren't expected to lose this election, and they lost it, and Hillary lost it big, and the Democrats lost seats left and right, all down the ballot. And everybody was talking about how the Republicans might actually end up with 60 seats in the Senate because the Republicans have fewer seats to defend in 2018. The Democrats have many seats to defend, and many of them, it was said, are in Trump districts where Trump won big. 1 year ago, folks, the media narrative was that the Democrat Party is toast. And now look, we've because of one election, you can't even count New Jersey in this. This is all because of what happened in Virginia. Because of the results in Virginia, all of that's now out the window, and now it's the Republicans that are going to lose everything. Now the Republicans are going to lose the majority. Now the Republicans are resigning left and right. Now the Republicans have nothing to defend. Now all of the infighting and discords on the Republican side. And the Democrats, they're back to being a well-oiled machine. And they're on the way. They're going to win back control of the House. They might win back the Senate. They might impeach Trump. Look at in just 1 year. Now, is any of this real? No. What I'm telling you is that this anti-Trump wave supposedly created by Virginia is a lie. There is no anti-Trump wave right now, is what I'm trying to tell you. Let me go through this rapidly again. 1 year ago, after Trump wins and Hillary loses, when Hillary was expected to win this huge landslide and Trump was supposed to be vanquished to some alligator-infested golf course somewhere, after that reversal happened, remember what the drive-bys were forced to look at. They were forced to look at all the Democrat losses preceding Hillary's, and they are legion. The Democrats had lost over 1,000, actually 12 to 1,400 seats since 2010. In the Senate, the Democrats in 2018 had 25 seats to defend, and the media was wringing its hands, and they were worried profusely that the Republicans might actually end up with 60 seats because they were gobsmacked. They could not believe what had happened, and they slowly came around to realizing how popular Trump was, and that ticked them off, and so the resistance kicked up as an official movement and began. But there was absolutely no upbeat, positive anything. There wasn't any hang in there, gang. We're going to get the House back in 18, and we're going to get the Senate back in 20, and we're going to get the White House back as soon as we can impeach Trump. Nope, they were talking about how they were going to be consigned to the wilderness for a generation. Yes, they were. They were talking about it. They were worried about it because they were so shaken. There have been special elections all year, this year, leading up to Virginia yesterday. And in every instance, the Republican won after the media had told everybody the Democrats were going to win. After every one of those special elections was cast or portrayed or promoted as a referendum on Trump. When Trump wins them, when the Republican wins them, of course, that explanation is dropped. The narrative that it's a referendum on Trump is dropped, and the excuses are made for how unfair it was for the Democrat here or this or whatever. So one election that the Democrats win in the last 12 months that has the nation focused on it, the special elections this year and this Virginia governor's race. I mean, you know, they're not talking about New Jersey, right? Because that was never going to be in play for the Republicans. There's no way. New Jersey, New York, California right now are lost. Whatever happens there, the Democrats winning is not news. And it's not even anything that they can use to put a feather in their cap. It's simply what's expected. But they were worried about Virginia. They were really worried about Virginia. They were worried that somebody in the Gillespie campaign might figure out what they have to do to win. That didn't happen. But they were worried about it. The reason they were so now thinking, see, this is it. This is the pushback. This is the nation. The nation is now saying they've had it with Trump. The nation, via the voters of Virginia, have finally risen up, but there's no data to back this up. This is all a media manufactured narrative. And like all media manufactured narratives, it's designed to dispirit you. It's designed to quiet you down and depress you and hopefully to get you to not care anymore and just stand aside and realize there's nothing you can do. Even when Trump wins, you still are not going to win anything. The left, the media, they still run everything, and that's the purpose of these narratives. And so now we have this gigantic anti-Trump wave, right? Except that we don't. This anti-Trump wave is a fabricated media lie. I'm going to tell you this. The closer you get to the Washington Beltway, the closer you get to Washington, D.C., the less you will hear this sentiment. The closer you get to Washington, the greater the fear there that there is an anti-Trump wave. Republicans who live, conservatives, Republicans who live and work in Washington, in and or surrounded by the establishment, are always affected by it, and they have always been rendered pessimistic. It'd be hard not to be. You're guaranteed minority. If you're a Republican conservative in Washington, you're guaranteed minority. Even if they let you into the establishment, your position there is to lose. Your purpose is to stay second tier. But the further away from Washington you get, the less this idea of an anti-Trump wave seems real. Let's go back through some numbers. In the 2016 presidential race, Donald Trump won 84.3% of America's counties. The number is 2,623. Hillary Clinton won 15.7% of America's counties, or a total of 487. Donald Trump won 30 states. Hillary Clinton won 20. One of Donald Trump's 30 states was not Virginia. He did not win Virginia. So no change in Virginia. He didn't win California, and he didn't win New Jersey, and he didn't win the mayorship of New York City. And so on Tuesday, nothing really changed. There is no way, just because of the election results in New Jersey and New York, you can say that there's this massive anti-Trump wave going on. Nevertheless, they are using it. They are promoting it. They are trying to sell it. Here are the Democrat losses under Obama. They lost 12 governorships. They lost 62 House seats. They lost 9 Senate seats. They lost 958 state legislatures. I'm sorry, but not one of those numbers changed on Tuesday. The Democrats did not lose the governorship of New Jersey when Trump won. McAuliffe was the governor. He's a Democrat. So nothing has changed, folks. Don't let this all of a sudden magic invention of an anti-Trump wave overtake you. There is no evidence that it exists. And you certainly can't take the election results from Virginia and claim that there is a nationwide anti-Trump narrative. And I'm going to remind you what they were all saying 1 year ago. 1 year ago after Trump wins, they were the ones that were depressed. They were the ones despondent. They were the ones that had become detached. They were worried the Senate was lost. The Republicans might even pick up 60 seats, or have a total of 60 after 2018. These Democrat losses under Obama, over 1,200 seats, 12 governors, 62 House seats, 9 senators, 958 state legislators, none of that changed Tuesday. And all the polling data says that in Virginia, the people who voted for Trump in 2016 would vote for him again today. The Trump vote held. It just wasn't enough to win Virginia, which Trump didn't either. And so the next story in our little stack here comes from the Politico. GOP faces wrenching call, running with or away from Trump. Somebody needs to explain something to me. How is it that the Democrats winning a state they already own, in terms of the governor's mansion, how is it the Democrats holding on to the governor's mansion and holding on to power in New Jersey and holding power in New York? How does that force the Republicans into a gut-wrenching anything? Why is the question running with or away from Trump? Trump, much to these people's chagrin, was not on the ballot on Tuesday. The Republican that ran did not embrace Trump. How in the world can you say that Trump lost on Tuesday, and thus how can you say that the Republicans face a gut-wrenching call? They don't. This is all manufactured. Just like the narrative before every special election was manufactured. The Ossoff race in Georgia, remember? When he won that was going to be the beginning of the refutation of Donald Trump. Except Ossoff lost, as did every other Democrat in the special election. They've had the narrative ready to go. Well, law of averages. They keep the governor's mansion in Virginia, and all of a sudden that means an uprising against Donald Trump nationwide. You don't believe these people day in and day out, so don't start believing the media now. And I have to say something else. Look, anybody that thought the Republicans are going to win New Jersey, I mean, it might have been a pipe dream at one point, but if you saw the most recent polling data on Governor Christie, I think his approval number was, what was it, 18? Is that what you saw? Well, I guess that means the Springsteen vote didn't come through. Why would you count on that anyway? On the Republican side, they just didn't shut enough bridge lanes down on Election Day, and if you don't do that, then if you don't keep the Democrats away from the polls in New Jersey, you don't have a prayer. Okay, we're going to start on the phones in Earlysville, Virginia. Jackie, great to have you here on the EIB network. Hello.
Hello, Russ, and thank you so much for taking my call today.
You bet.
I have been, I'm kind of a political junkie, and I love to
Can I ask you a question about being a political junkie?
Okay.
There's no wrong answer. I'm just genuinely curious. Do you ever wear out on it? Do you ever, because as a political junkie, I would think you don't, but do you ever just say, not tire of your party, just tire of it? Do you ever say, the heck with this. I've lost my energy for it.
No, I don't.
You don't. That's why you're a junkie. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I just wanted to let you know about what I think happened here in Virginia.
Okay.
First of all, over the years, and we've lived here in Virginia since 1971, it was a red state back then. You couldn't find a speck of blue. And then it began to get a little bit more blue, and you could find blue around the Charlottesville area where Earlysville is located near Charlottesville.
Right.
Then up in Northern Virginia, of course, because of the government employee influx, they all kind of gravitated toward Fairfax County and a couple of
wait a minute. You said that was blue too. I mean, it was red too at some point. What happened to those people?
But it turned blue. Over the years, it turned blue.
Was it because people moved in it who were blue, or was it the people who were there turned blue?
I think it's because it was people who moved in. And the same thing here.
Yep.
More and more people are from the north.
Exactly right. They're escaping high taxes, they're escaping bad weather, and they're bringing their liberalism and their destruction with them.
That's exactly right. That's what I believe is happening. And the turnout from, for the Northam campaign was nearly 48%, from 43% in 2013. So the turnout was a lot greater this time round. And when we went to the polls in our little precinct, I mean, it was packed. We couldn't believe the traffic in and out of there, and it was a lot of young people. The older people that we used to see, I don't know where they went, retirement communities or something. But they may still be here in Virginia. But
are you telling me that when you saw the young people, you saw a bunch of Democrat votes? Is that what you mean?
Yes,
millennials.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we're near the University of Virginia.
Yes. They've been taught the beauty and the loving nature of communism, and they've actually said that they admire Mao Zedong.
They've bought into this completely.
Totally.
And then there's the thing with the bad candidate. I think Gillespie was a terrible candidate. He was boring. He looked like he was establishment.
Now wait a minute. Wait a minute. That's exactly what the Republicans say they need. They need somebody who's polite, who has good manners, who knows how to speak without offending people. This is what the Republicans say is the ticket
No.
This is why the nation hates Donald Trump, because they don't like the way he talks, they don't like his attitude, they don't like his brusque nature, and so the answer would seem to be boring milquetoast dryballs who are polite to people.
Oh, he was terrible. I think he was a bad candidate, like Hillary was a bad candidate. It was poison. We didn't have a Dave Bratt up here.
Yeah.
In our area, and I think somebody like a Dave Bratt is what this state needs. What
you're basically saying is you need warriors, and the establishment, by definition, are not warriors. They send other people to be the warriors while they sit back with the port and the cigars and relive the war stories that they're told, but they don't actually engage in them. I'm glad you called, Jackie. That's well stated and well done. Where are we going next? We have time for one more before the break. So Lynchburg, Virginia next. This is Nathan. Great that you called, sir. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Rush?
Very fine, sir. Thank you.
Hey, I wanted to talk about the media and their referendum that this Virginia was a referendum on Trump's decline in popularity. That couldn't be more false. I'll tell you where the referendum lies. It's with the Republican establishment candidate that they chose, Ed Gillespie. The people that I know that voted that are Republicans did it very hesitantly and really didn't want to. But because out of a civic duty that they feel obliged to partake of, there's a political revolution going on now where people are actually considering not voting if the Republican Party doesn't put forth what Trumpists and Trump supporters want. Trump is the leader of this movement. Trump has got to get with the Republicans and either change their ways, because 2018 is coming quick, or start a new party, because it can't continue on like this. Voters are starting to get wise to the tricks of the trade.
Well, and this is an excellent point, folks. Let me take Nathan's call here and translate it into my own analysis. What Nathan's essentially saying is that there are Republicans who consider the Republican establishment's betrayal to be worthy of more anger than the left. In other words, these people will not vote for a Republican to keep the left out of power. They will stay home and let the left win rather than vote for a Republican establishment they think has betrayed them. And believe me, it's a conundrum because the left has to be defeated. We can't continue with them winning elections. That trend cannot reestablish itself. We have to beat them. But I understand why these people think this way. People all across the fruited plain gathered last night to scream into the sky to mark the anniversary of Trump winning the election. Our microphones were there, and we'll give you a little sample of how the scream at the sky sounded when we get back. I knew this was going to happen, and I'm glad it did. I got some emails during the break. Don't you think you're not being honest with yourself and with us? Don't you think Trump's in big trouble? Don't you think this election really means that? You can't look out over America and think everything's rosy. Did I say everything's rosy? All I said was there is no anti-Trump wave that you can peg to the Virginia or New Jersey elections. There is no anti-Trump wave. It's totally manufactured, folks. Don't fall prey to it. I know how easy it is to fall prey to it. I'm asking you to resist it. You know what really ticks me off? I went through these numbers. Let me go through this again. By the way, welcome back, Rush Limbaugh. Excellence in Broadcasting, 800-282-2882. This anti-Trump wave is a fabricated lie. Here are the numbers again. Donald Trump won 30 states. Hillary Clinton won 20. Donald Trump did not win Virginia. So there was no loss in Virginia on Tuesday. In other words, we didn't lose something we had. Lost the election, but we didn't lose something we had. Here are Democrat losses since 2010 under Barack Obama, 12 governorships. And that number doesn't change with Northam winning in Virginia. The Democrats are still down 12 governorships. 62 seats in the House of Representatives. The Democrats lost 9 Senate seats, 958 state legislators. And if you start talking about mayors and town councils, and if you keep going down the ballot, you'll get to a number between 13 and 1,400 that the Democrats have lost. What ticks me off is that we have been defeating the left at the ballot box for 10 years now, folks. Obama aside, I mean, as the president, machine and so forth, we didn't have the two candidates we ran against Obama never had a prayer, McCain and Romney. But outside of that, we have been defeating the left at the ballot box, which means Republicans have benefited from their voters putting them in power. And what do we have to show for it? We're exhausted. After 10 years of winning, how many of you still feel like you're on the losing side because of the way your elected representatives act? That's what ticks me off. We're exhausted. 10 years, no results. Now the Senate Republicans are torpedoing tax reform. The stock market's down 200. They'll be able to delay these corporate tax cuts to 2019. We don't want to phase those in. This is pure Trump sabotage. That is what's going on. And if it's Trump sabotage, it's you being sabotaged, you who voted for him. That's what ticks me off. There's no reason the Democrats ought to be up and dancing. They didn't win anything. They stopped the bleeding is what happened in Virginia. That's the honest way to look at it. Now, look, I know full well how easy it is to get caught up in a media narrative because it's oppressive. It doesn't stop. The media doesn't show you anything. Look, Trump's trip in China, Trump's trip to Asia is a grand slam home run. They're not televising it. There's not a single network that televised Trump's arrival ceremony in China. There's not a single network that televised all of the Chicom children waving the American flag. There are more Chicom children waving the American flag than we have NFL players waving the American flag. Chicom kids are waving the American flag. They're happy to see President Trump. President Trump, as I said yesterday, is representing the United States from a position of strength. The world needs it. The world celebrates it. The world wants it. And Trump is providing it. Now, they're trying to sabotage Trump by saying he's doing a 180. Now, all of a sudden, the Chicoms are his best friends. Remember during the campaign, he accused them of cheating and this and that and the other thing. And you get Bill Clinton out there. Bill Clinton is now saying that Donald Trump is on the way to creating a dictatorship through the lies that he is telling. Bill Clinton, of all people, talking about a dictatorship. That's beyond the pale. But that's what's happening. These people know they're losing, folks. This is the thing about them. They know they're losing. Their media knows in terms of these elections. But they know how to act the exact opposite way. Their media analysts on TV and their anchors and their hosts know how to act like they're the majority, that they're the cool kids and that they're this and that. But they're the ones losing. Can we go back to the audio soundbites, a graveyard of forgotten audio soundbites, November 8th of 2016. NBC special coverage of the election. This is before Trump was declared the winner. Chuck Todd speaking with James Carville about the nominee. Trump being on the way to winning the presidential elections. It was late at night, and they finally figured out what has happened. Because remember, at 9 o'clock on election night, they still thought, so did the Republicans, that Hillary was going to win in a landslide. So this is later than that. Chuck Todd says, you know, James, there will be a lot of Democrats who are going to complain about WikiLeaks. They will complain about James Comey, and it had some impact. But on the other hand, Trump's basic message never changed.
You got to realize the Democratic Party has the least amount of power that you can imagine in this democracy. the Republicans have like 30 state legislatures, governors. We're going to lose the federal courts, the Senate, the House, the presidency. I mean, it is a utter disaster if you're a Democrat in terms of having any political power in the country right now.
November 8th, 1 year ago, almost to the day, James Carville. And he was right. That night, after the election results were in, based on number of seats, the Democrat Party, you had to go back to 1920 in order to find a Democrat Party with less power than they have now, just in terms of elected seats that they hold. And Carville was talking about what it all meant. The federal courts, the Senate, the House, the presidency. I mean, it's a utter disaster. Just 1 year ago. Now, let me ask you something. What's changed? Honestly, folks, don't tell me attitudes. Don't tell me people hate Trump. The Trump hatred's been out there from June of 2015. What has changed? Nothing. Republicans have lost or won every special election. They didn't win Virginia. I think there was a lot of people hoping that the trend would continue, but it didn't. But there isn't any change of any substance. What change there is an attitudinal change created by media narratives that is designed to portray Republican Party as where the Democrats are. And that's the rub. We have been defeating the left for 10 years at the ballot box. We have been swamping them. They're down 1,300 seats, and what is there to show for it? And as I say, now the Senate is trying to torpedo the tax reform plan coming out of the House. And by the way, there are some conservatives that are not really impressed with the House tax bill anyway in terms of its conservative bona fides. We had a caller in the last hour who has a theory, she's a political junkie, and she was reminding everybody how red Virginia used to be. It used to be a dyed-in-the-wool Republican state, and then all of a sudden started getting blue. It started getting blue around Charlottesville, University of Virginia, and it started getting blue in the D.C. suburbs in the northern part of the state. And she made the observation that it's not people in Virginia whose minds changed. It is newly arrived people from other parts of the country, predominantly liberal parts of the country, the north and northeast. And they are fleeing liberalism. They're fleeing high taxes. They're fleeing high property taxes. They're fleeing traffic. They're fleeing municipal absolute discord. They're fleeing bad weather. They're fleeing freezing cold in the midst of global warming. And when they arrive in these new states, they immediately start polluting these states with their madcap liberalism. And the Republicans have ignored this. The Republicans have not even had a plan to deal with what this really is. This is an infiltration of liberals from the north moving south for whatever reasons, and they're turning these states to which they're moving, simply by virtue of numbers, into liberal enclaves. Certainly parts of the states are becoming liberal enclaves. Virginia and North Carolina are two of the noteworthy states where this is happening. They were governed by Republicans who made creating jobs and low-tax environments their identities. But nobody's talking to these people but the leftist media. So what we have is a number of factors here that, combined with media narratives, make it look to you, if you pay attention to the news, like the Republicans are losing left and right, or not forget, like Trump is losing left and right, and that Trump's voters are abandoning him, and there isn't any evidence of that whatsoever. Do you think the Democrats would have this little to show for 10 years of such dramatic election wins? I hardly think so. And, of course, what it boils down to is establishment Republicans versus every other Republican and conservative throughout the country. There's a big disconnect, and there's not much in common. And so we win, and you know the drill. Republicans win by virtue of campaigning as conservatives or candidates that are going to implement things their voters want, and they win and get there, and all of that stops. And if anything happens, little bits and pieces of the Democrat agenda are what get implemented. Or elements of the Republican conservative agenda get chipped away, ignored, and never entered into the arena. Even after all these massive wins, this is what ticks me off. The left is still as deranged as it's ever been. I mean, if they're winning so big, where's the happiness? If they're winning so big, where's the joy? If they're winning so big, where are the parties? Instead, look what's happening to them. Every bastion they control is imploding. Sexual harassment here, rape there. I mean, it is incredible what's happening to the left. It's no wonder that they're so at their wits' end that they're going out at night and yelling at the sky, which a bunch of them did last night. Our microphones were there. We have this from Washington Square Park in New York City. This is the one-year anniversary protest of Trump's election. These insane Trump haters gather to literally scream at the sky. Is there anybody out there saying I'll have two of what they're having? No way. There is no excuse for this. There is no excuse for winning this often with this many seats, acquiring this much power, and having so little done with it. It's the same old lament. I'm only bringing it up not to keep hitting the greatest hits, but what they're telling you is happening out there is not what's happening. There is no anti-Trump wave. Not among Trump voters. There's an anti-Trump wave among people that didn't vote for him, yeah, but not among Trump voters. They've not done that. They have not succeeded in turning Trump voters away from him. Trump voters may be as tightly glued to him and his campaigns as ever. Back to the phones. We head to Philadelphia. Lisa, great to have you with us today on the EIB network. Hi.
Hi, Rush. I've been a long-time listener since 1994. I'm a little nervous right now, but I wanted to let you know that I am a naturalized citizen. I became a citizen, joined the military. I'm a deplorable that lives in Pennsylvania and cried the night that Trump won.
Well, welcome. That's fabulous. You've been listening since 1994, did you say?
Since 1994, yes.
Well, I thank you very much for that. That's awesome, Lisa. Where are you from originally?
Panama.
Panama!
Yes.
Well, excellent. Well, we're glad you're here. What's up?
I just wanted to tell you, in case I lose you, I'm driving to work right now, but I wanted to let you know that I'm really nervous that I just heard the Senate version of the tax cut, and it's worse than the House. And I truly believe that they're going to sabotage and make Trump fail, the establishment, Republicans and the rest of them, because he's a threat to the country the way they want it to be. It's like, for instance, I come from Panama, and for some reason, folks that move here tend to want to recreate what they left behind.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Rather than becoming Americans, they want to balkanize, and that is one of our current immigration problems. If I understand what you're talking about, have I got that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's just depressing. I've even seen the change in the past 30 years. I've seen it change since we moved here, and it's really unfortunate. It's actually very depressing.
Well, look, I don't want to be overly simplistic about it, but you can thank the Democrat Party for that.
Absolutely.
The Democrat Party does not want assimilation with a great American culture because they don't think that it is.
America is the greatest place in the world, and it's disappearing.
No, America is an imperialistic, egotistical, racist, and sexist slave state.
Oh, gosh. But
anyway, about your point, about your, look, the Senate Republicans are indeed, look, the Senate very seldom just rubber stamps what comes over from the House, so some of this is not unusual, but they are taking elements of this and saying, we're not going to do this right off the bat. This is suicidal. We're going to delay that corporate tax. If people don't want corporations to get tax cuts, we're going to delay that for 4 years. Her theory is that all of this is being done to sabotage the whole bill so that it doesn't pass in order to depress support for Trump or to give people a lesson. I think what they're thinking is, if I may be so bold, let's accept your premise. It's a hypothetical. Let's say you're right, Lisa, that the Republicans in the Senate, let's just stick with them for now, are purposely trying to see to it this bill doesn't pass because they want to send a message to Trump voters that whatever Trump wants, we're going to make sure he doesn't get. You're going to have to realize that Trump is, you're not going to get what you want as long as you stick with Trump because we're going to make sure it doesn't happen. That's what they want, the reaction. They want you to think that Trump is the problem. They want you to think that they would do all of this if it just weren't for Trump. But Trump is so dangerous, and Trump is a pig, and Trump is an outsider, and Trump is dangerous, and Trump doesn't know. They want you to abandon Trump. They are miscalculating who is going to suffer or who will pay the price for this. Now, this leads me in. I've not got enough time to develop this. Lisa, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. I got an interesting email during the last break. And in the next segment, I want to run it by you. And I would like, you don't need to call me about it. I just want you to listen to what this email says. I'm going to paraphrase it because it's kind of convoluted, but I know what they're saying. And see how many of you think there's something to this. Essentially, it is, Rush, if Trump were truly a good president, then he would have by now converted some of these people that hate him, and there wouldn't be so much divide or partisanship. And so in that sense, Rush, maybe Trump isn't the guy, is essentially what this email says. There's a little bit more in it, but I had to get, that ear-splitting tone was coming. I had to get what I could in before that. Now this email I got. And by the way, I happen to know a couple people. The reason this email resonated with me, I know a couple people who are disappointed because of this. These are people who had really high hopes in Trump. They loved Trump from the beginning. They understood that politics is made up of hatred and negativism and disgust, but they were hoping that if Trump won, that after a certain amount of time, all of this hatred and anger would dissipate, and that Americans would come together, or enough of them, to do what normally happens, support the president. And they also thought that more people would see the real Donald Trump they know, and that some of this opposition would be tamed. And so the email I got during the break about 25 minutes ago was, Rush, if Trump were really good, he would have tamed some of this opposition by now. Many of these people would have seen the light by now. Many of these people would have realized they were wrong. If Trump really had the ability to unify people, there'd be some sign of it. So they're disappointed. It's like they want everybody to love Trump the way they do. And when not everybody does, they start questioning whether or not they're doing the right thing by supporting Trump. Now, you know what this is, don't you? This is a fatal flaw in the human psyche. And that fatal flaw is caring way too much about what other people think. We all are afflicted by it. It's part of the way human beings are raised. It's just no escaping it. Nobody is raised to want to be hated, and so nobody knows really how to do it. Nobody is raised to want to be disliked. Nobody is raised to be partisan and divisive and controversial, but a lot of people are, and others are made nervous and uncomfortable by it. And so some of these people that wish Trump were better able to convert his enemies, it would make them feel better if Trump could do it, about their choice to support Trump. Well, what are the odds of that? I mean, the opposition to Trump is irrational. The opposition to Trump is impossible to rationally explain. I mean, you can explain it, but it doesn't make any sense unless you understand the left and who they are, how they became that way, and how they basically think as they go through the day. There might be some that Trump has converted, but it's not a big number. This is why, folks, I always say the way this is going to be won is not by converting them. If that happens, that's a bonus. The way this is going to be won is by beating them. And that makes a lot of people nervous. You mean it's going to be a constant battle? Yes, it is. For a long time. They're going to have to be defeated every day. They're going to have to be defeated in as many elections as possible. They don't want to be on your side. They don't like you. And to waste time trying to make that happen is just that, a waste of time. Who's next? Steve in Springfield, Missouri. Great to have you, sir. Welcome to the program. Hi.
Thanks for taking my call, Rush.
Yes, sir.
I've got the question here. Do you think the Democrats are going to run Joe Biden? That's what this stuff with Don Brazil is all about?
No,
book and
I actually don't. In fact, let's go to grab soundbites number 1 and 2. I touched on this yesterday. Biden, I think, may want to, but I don't think that's who the Democrats are going to choose. I think, I'll tell you what, I touched on this yesterday, because this Brazil book, there's too much of it now. And as I said yesterday, I stumbled into this observation a couple of days ago. There's just too much of this. They want us focusing on Brazil and what she's saying, because while we're doing that, something else is happening over here that we're not looking at. And my belief of the left is that everything is a con, because they cannot be honest about what they believe and what their plans are. They really would not win elections if that were the way they were. Even Obama never came out and actually openly said what his intentions were. And in certain parts of the country they can. In New York and San Francisco, they can be totally open and honest with what they're going to do. But to win national elections, they can't do that, which is ultimately a positive as well. So everything they do is a con. Everything they do is a scam or a strategy or something. It's this Brazil book. Everybody's asking, why is she doing this? Well, she's trying to cover her own rear end. That Democrat National Committee was a big mess, and she's trying to make sure she doesn't get tainted. But that's not what's going on. That's what we're supposed to think. Or we're supposed to think that it's all about getting rid of Hillary because she won't go away herself. Maybe a grain of truth to that. But what I think is something far, far different. I think part of getting the next Democrat nominee has to include getting rid of the Clintons. Not just Bill, but Hillary. They both have got to be relegated to the ash heap. The Democrats, I'm telling you right now, are thinking that if the Clintons still control this machine, when we get into the 2020 presidential election cycle, they're going to lose it again. Hillary is every bit as hated as Donald Trump. They just don't tell you this. She's every bit as divisive. She's every bit as partisan. Hillary Clinton is every bit as polarizing as Donald Trump, but not with the media, so you don't see that reflected. But Hillary Clinton is despised, and by more and more Democrats who are worried that the Clintons have a tight hold on this party, and until they're forced to let go of it, they're trapped. I think what Brazil is doing, some might say that it's genius. I will withhold judgment. But I think Donna Brazil is trying to clear the decks for Michelle Obama to be the 2020 Democrat presidential nominee. Take you back to me and my program yesterday. This is what I said, and it's very short. I think this is it, frankly. I think this is exactly what's going on here. I think Brazil is clearing the decks and setting up, and she's going to run the Michelle Obama campaign for president. And if not run the campaign, although I think she'll be intimately involved, this is about clearing the decks, getting the refuse out of the way. Because who else is there? Would somebody tell me who else is? Biden? Give me a break. Who is it? Not the Castro brother. Castro brothers, neither one of them have risen sufficiently. No. Kamala Harris is not the answer. They floated that trial balloon. They put it out there that she was raising money and she was great here and doing great there. Who is calling me? What the hell is this? Unrecognized number. I never answer it anyway. They're trying to distract me out there at the Clinton headquarters. The bottom line, Kamala Harris it didn't work. That was a trial balloon. And the Castro brothers didn't. That was a trial balloon. And it isn't going to be Crazy Bernie again. Who else is it? Elizabeth Warren? I don't think so. Where is the energy for Pocahontas? Folks, this party, I think, knows it's in trouble. This is the great, what would you say, dichotomy here? Because the media portrays the Democrats, of course, as the smoothest running, well-oiled power machine going, and they are in total disarray. And I think they think that Brazil thinks, and whoever she's with thinks it's Michelle Maybell. And here's Brazil herself. Last night, Tucker Carlson, Fox News Channel, question: a male Democrat dismissed your claims of having experienced sexism by saying you were crazy, something that I thought we weren't allowed to do, is to call women crazy.
My mother, when I was a little kid growing up, my mother used to say, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. But I want to channel another woman who I admire so much, and that's Michelle Obama, who said, when they go low, you go high. And perhaps what I did on Sunday when I told some of my detractors to go to hell, and as you well know, some of my conservatives know that I have always had a quick tongue. I've told people in the past what I really feel. You know, I should have channeled Michelle and just go higher.
There you have it, by the way. Did I not tell you? Of all the people she can cite as someone she admires and is trying to emulate. How about that quick tongue comment, though? Didn't that kind of intrigue you out there? I want to stay with the phones here. We've got Matt in Bellingham, Washington. Greetings, sir. This is an intriguing comment. If what I think you're going to say is what you say. What are you going to say?
The honor is all mine. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir, you bet.
Yeah, I'll get to my main point, and I also have a battery life question if you have time after that. But my main point is I've been watching House of Cards lately. Just started it, and I can't help but watching the main couple, that Kevin Spacey is one of the, he's the guy, and I'm just, all I see is Clintons when I watch them, him and his wife in the show. So then I thought, okay, is he in the circle of the Clintons in real life, and is he being targeted now for all these things that he's done for decades, apparently, just like Weinstein?
Well,
because maybe they're trying to take down a Clinton.
No, they wouldn't. No. Nobody's trying to take down well, let me get ahead of myself here. First, Spacey is friends with the Clintons, but he's not in the inner circle. Weinstein is an entirely different matter. Weinstein and the Clintons are inseparable. Weinstein was there at the official unveiling of Bill and Hillary's official portraits at the White House ceremony. George Bush ran. He's one of their biggest bundlers and biggest donors. We know of Weinstein's behavior. We know of his activities. We have heard similar stories about Bill Clinton. And then there are other people in that group. There's a guy named Jeffrey Epstein, who hires 15-year-old girls to be massage therapists at his home that Clinton's visited. Epstein flew Clinton all over the world, ostensibly on charity missions. I'm not going to mention the other names because I don't want them to come out. They haven't been thrown in this story, but there are other people in this group of people, and I have been amazed that none of this has touched old Slick Willie, because not yet. I can't look. I'm not going to go any further, but not Spacey. Spacey's friends with him. I mean, we would vote for him and so forth. But I don't think Spacey and the Clintons necessarily socialize and so forth. But Weinstein and the Clintons and that whole cabal. Yeah, if you want to hang on through the break here and you have your battery life question, if you can hang on, we'll do it right at the top of the next hour. Don't go away. We have to take a quick time out here. Now, you got to be careful talking about this stuff, folks. What appears to be common sense but hasn't been established, you got to really tiptoe through the tulips with it. So that's that. But the fastest 3 hours in media moves on. We will continue before you know it. You know, I got to take it back. I've had some little helpers out there sending me all kinds of pictures, links. Kevin Stacey with Bill Clinton embracing at parties and having a good old yuck time. There's even a New York Times story that from this past February. Well, let me get the date. Was it from February of 2015, talking about the bromance between Kevin Spacey and Bill Clinton. So, please, folks, you have to excuse me for not knowing that kind of thing. I mean, I know a lot, but I don't know what Stacey might have tried to grab where Clinton's involved, or what they both might have tried to grab. I don't know. I didn't know that. Look, I know they know each other. I knew that, but I didn't know that the New York Times had done a story on the bromance. Look, Epstein's plane was called a Lolita Express. It was. And Clinton's on that plane, I can't tell you how many times. The idea that it's just too big a stretch of the imagination. So far, though, none of it has touched Slick Willie, and I don't think it will. The drive-bys will do what they can to protect. And even Weinstein. I mean, Weinstein could probably lessen some of... I doubt if he could. He'd probably keep tight lips, because Weinstein's enough of a delusional figure to think he's got a future after this. And it's quite possible in the Democrat Party he could. I mean, this is the kind of thing that talk to Ted Kennedy about. I mean, this is resume enhancement stuff. Oh, and have you heard, folks, if you haven't heard this, it's the lead story at Drudge. Apparently, I haven't clicked the link, so I know outline things here. Judge Roy Moore in Alabama has been accused of sexual harassment. Now, you know what my initial reaction to that is? This guy is hated by the Washington establishment. This guy, Mitch McConnell and the boys, did not want this guy winning that Senate seat. If this was known, it would have been found before. Now, don't you think? Do you think Mitch and his opposition research guys could have found this? It only pops up now. And, of course, Judge Moore is this rock-ribbed Christian Ten Commandments guy. this is made to order for the left to start just shouting about hypocrisy and all that. I don't know if it's true. I don't have any idea. My first thought is, with as many people have wanted to nail this guy for so many years, why haven't they found this until now? Or maybe they did, and maybe they're waiting because what the purpose here is to undermine Trump. And Trump's supporters like Judge Moore. Don't forget. Trump didn't. Trump did endorse him. Trump endorsed old Luther. Bit of a tongue twister. I got to get back. Did the guy hang up? No, you hung up on him. You forgot that I was going to talk to the guy, right? He had a battery life question, and I told him to hang up. Yep. Well, see, he's not up on the call screen monitor, which means somebody had to take him off. He doesn't leave that just by hanging up. You can't fool me. You know, I may not have screened calls in there on that system, but I know for a fact that our computer doesn't take guys off the monitor when they hang up the phone. The poor guy was hanging on for a battery life. Do you realize how much he was depending on me to answer his battery life question? Now he's gone. You know how hard it is to get back into this show? People have been trying for 30 years and haven't made it in once. And I don't know what his battery life question was. I can assume that his battery life's not very good, but I don't know what the specific question was. I mentioned Bill Clinton is out accusing Trump of dictatorship. Here it is. This was last night on the Conan O'Brien show on TBS, and they were talking about world politics. And this is what Slick Willie had to say.
The dictators club in the world, and there's a bunch of them, you know, they want two things. They want nuclear weapons because they feel like they can never be dislodged no matter how much people hate them if they got nuclear power. And they want to abolish the line between fact and fiction and truth and lie. Because they figure if you don't know what's true and you don't think you can ever know, that pretty soon everybody will accept the fact that democracy is no longer possible.
And he went on to say that Trump is one of these guys. He went on to say that Trump is one of these guys that's trying to abolish the line between fact and fiction and truth and lie because Trump wants everybody to believe democracy isn't any possible any longer. Trump wants to be a dictator. He wants to join the dictators club in the world. Hey, Clinton says there's a bunch of them, you know, and they want two things. They want nuclear weapons and they want women. I'm sorry, they want nuclear weapons and they don't want to be dislodged from women. Some of them go to Hollywood, some of them go to White House. I did both. Bill Clinton talking about dictatorship. Let's move on to some other things in the stack here, folks. This is earth-shattering news. Can I share this headline with you? NFL commissioner: fans attend games to be entertained, not protested to. Duh. The commissioner says this as though he just figured this out. People come to our stadiums to be entertained and have fun, Commissioner Goodell noted, not to be protested to. These remarks came as part of Bloomberg's The Year Ahead Summit and reflect a recognition of a ratings decline and criticism from some sponsors. Though Goodell held that he hoped to learn from the concerns of players, he reiterated his desire that they stand for the national anthem. He said, I think that's one of the things that I think when we have the platform the way we do, people seek to find that division. And I think that's something we try to resist, Goodell explained of the protests. And in this case, I've been very clear about this. The anthem, the respect for our flag, it's very important, so I want to see our players stand. Now, I know he said that. He said that a couple of times. But he's also talked about the need for us to get into our communities and to go into our communities and to solve the problems in our communities, which is pure left-wing lingo. The Wall Street Journal had an editorial last week essentially accusing the NFL management, not the owners, the management of purposely steering the NFL politically and to the left. Now, Look, I want to ask a question. These are rhetorical questions, but I still want to ask it. Why would somebody purposely want to steer something as large and up until now perceived as apolitical to the left? What is the left known for? What is the left proud of? What does the left want you to know about? They don't like this country. They think this country has deep flaws. They think this country is racist. They think this country has a bunch of racist cops that are just wantonly murdering innocent black men. This is what the left thinks, among many other perverted and screwball things. Why would you purposely want to steer your league toward that identity when you know that it's going to alienate, statistically, half of your fans? Why would you want to do this? On the other hand, I could understand why you would want people to think that your league is patriotic, that believes in the time-honored American principles of hard work and discipline and teamwork. You know, there are several identifying characteristics of conservatism that I would fully expect a sports league and its executives to want to identify with. I could understand if a sports league chose not to actively appear to be moving in that direction because liberals, some of them, go to games. Some of them watch and some of them buy sponsored products. Up till now, the NFL, other than a couple players and their endorsements of presidents, and until recently, the owners even stayed out of it. The owners were involved, but you never knew about it. And Dan Rooney, the Steelers, openly came out for Obama. Others, like Bob Kraft and New England, came out for Trump. But aside from that, this league pretty much had an apolitical identity. And then when this protest stuff started, it became clear that the executive leadership of the NFL was, in fact, siding with the players. They had no desire, despite, I think everybody should stand for the anthem. They took not one step to make that happen. They continued to let the people playing the game inflict damage on it. Why would you do that? You got a business to run here. Well, the answer to the question is found in what is liberalism. And if you are dyed-in-the-wool liberal, everything must be. And if you have a powerful executive position or any other kind of position, and you're liberal, you've got to use it to advance it, to spread it. And if that means taking your league in that direction because you believe in it, that's what you do. Whether it inflicts damage or not. Bob Costas was on a panel at some, I think it was it in Baltimore? Was it Johns Hopkins? It was a panel of sports journalists and other experts talking about the NFL and I think sports in general. And Costas said, and this is the kind of thing I knew was going to happen, by the way, and when it starts happening, there's no reversing this. Costas said that football damages people's brains. Well, and that if he had a 12 or 13-year-old today, he would not let the kid play football. I'm sorry, folks. Ever since this concussion stuff hit and all that, you know as well as I do that the days of the NFL, as you and I knew it, were numbered. We don't know how many days remaining there are, but I think a lot of people realize that this game is winding down and flittering away faster than anybody thought it would. And now it's not just the brain business and the concussions. Now all this other stuff is happening. And you simply cannot watch an NFL game today and see only the football. When you turn on the NFL today on TV, you're going to hear announcers talk about whether or not there were protests before the game. They may not televise it live anymore, but there will be videotape of it, and the announcers will talk about it. You can't escape it. And it's not why people tune in. They don't want to hear it. There's something else that's happening in NFL. You turn on any NFL show, and you know what half of the news is? Whether player X's suspension is going to be held up by the Second U.S. Court of Appeals, or whether the appeals process will go up to the Supreme Court. This is the NFL. We're talking about sports, but now we're talking about the lead news item is whether some player's suspension is going to be upheld, or whether the arbitrator is going to force it on up to the next highest court in the land. And then there's some other player comes along that has the same kind of thing. The news about the NFL is about player suspensions, about wife beating, spousal abuse, what kind of penalties there are for it. And the media seems to eat this up. The sports media seems to relish reporting this stuff. You can watch them. You can see how excited they get talking about all this other stuff. And because they're media and because the NFL's a big corporate entity, the fact the NFL might be being harmed by this is exciting, because that's one of the objectives of liberalism, is to damage corporations, because they're not people. They're all suspects. But these media people are the ones living off of the success of the NFL, and there they are, openly participating in what is what many people think is the downfall of it. So now all of a sudden the commissioner comes out and says, fans attend our games to be entertained, not protested to. Where was this 2 months ago? Where was this a year and a half ago when Kaepernick got all this started? Where's this been? Why now? Is it because of Papa John's leaving or threatening to? Or some of this stuff, just from the standpoint of proper management, business thinking, and decision-making, just flummoxes me. And the answer is, this is what liberalism is. It is a destructive force, and the people who believe in it and practice it believe that it must be forced on everybody, primarily because most people would not choose it. They have to be indoctrinated with it from a very young age in school. They have to be propagandized about it. But if left to an open choice with a decent education, people will not choose it. I take that back. Some will, because you don't have to do much to be a liberal. You just have to convince people you care about suffering. You don't have to do anything about it. All you have to know is who to blame for it. And you can end up being a great liberal. That's the gutless choice. Okay, here is what we know about the allegations against Judge Roy Moore in Alabama. Washington Post says that a woman says that Roy Moore initiated a sexual encounter against her when she was 14 and he was 32. A woman says that Moore initiated this. Moore says the Washington Post report is false and fake news. Mitch McConnell, a Republican leader in the Senate, has already announced that if the allegations are true, that Judge Moore needs to step aside right now. Again, Judge Moore saying it's all fake news, saying that this is the Washington Post trying to help his opponent. But the Washington Post says they have 3 other women who supposedly were also pursued by Judge Moore when they were between 18 and 30, and he was in his 30s. The Post claims a woman who claims that Moore pursued her when she was 14 only came forward because she had heard that other women had complaints against him. Now, here's the crux of the Washington Post report on Moore. Moore chatted with the 14-year-old girl and asked for her phone number, she says. Days later, she says he picked her up around the corner from her house in Gadsden, Alabama, drove her about 30 minutes to his home in the woods, told her how pretty she was, and then kissed her. On a second visit, she says that he took off her shirt and pants and removed his clothes. He touched her over her bra and underpants, she says, and guided her hand to his underwear. So that's the extent of it. the extent of the so-called sex. Aside from Korfman, 3 other women interviewed by the Washington Post in recent weeks say that Moore pursued them as well. All right, now, some obvious questions arise. If this happened when Judge Moore was in his 30s, this is how many years ago? 20? How many? What? Is he 70 now? So okay, so 40 years ago. So he's had all kinds of political opponents in that period of time, not just seeking office, but in other political endeavors. He's been involved in numerous controversies involving statues and so forth of the 10 Commandments at the State House, outside courthouses and so forth. The point is that there's been ample opportunity for news like this to have surfaced throughout the course of Judge Moore's career. So why now? Why after he has won the Republican primary in Alabama and is the candidate for Senate to replace Senator Sessions? The Republican leadership is quick to pick up on this and say, hey, Judge, if this is true, you need to skedaddle. You need to pull out of this race right now. Now, Judge Moore would be, for the left, a major, major get. Because here's a guy who is essentially a devout, born-again Christian who lives it, who breathes it, who preaches it. And could they go to town on the hypocrisy part of this? And they're salivating too. They can't wait. The only thing, well, I guess the only thing, but it's really suspicious that this stuff comes up so many years later, and it happens to be a story with details that seem to be exclusively attached to liberals and Democrats right now. This sexual abuse, sexual harassment story, you don't find too many Republicans in this story. It does appear from reading, and I haven't had a chance to dig deep into it because of time constraints here, but it does appear that the Washington Post has been seeking out women who would go after Judge Moore. This supposedly happened in 1979, so that's 38 years ago. Now, you think somebody in that 38 years knew this kind of stuff had happened? How does a guy like Moore, with the enemies he has, keep something like this bottled up for that long? But we'll see. Here's what happened to the guy from Germany. We got people dropping like flies here. Well, we go to, Idaho. Mike, greetings. Welcome to the program. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Mucho mega diddles, El Mahat Rushbo.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Appreciate that.
So my thing was that after watching news last night and this morning, that the key emphasis was that everyone was very hot and trot that they stopped Trump's agenda because they shellacked the Republicans in the governor races. But with the other 4 races that were held earlier this year to what they call special elections to fill the seats vacated by cabinet members, those were run. So that would be, of the 6 races, by my calculations, the Republicans are 4 out of 6. So there's batting 667 almost. Wish the Dodgers would have done us that well. But I don't understand what these Democrats are saying.
Oh, sure you do. Sure you do. They're trying to make this look like this is a nation finally realizing that they made a mistake voting for Trump, and they're taking every opportunity they can to say so at the ballot box. It's exactly what's going on. My whole first hour is devoted to this. There isn't a single thing that has changed because of the Virginia governor's election. The Democrats had the seat. They were expected to win it. Hillary won the state in 2016. Trump did not. There wasn't a single thing has changed. All the seats the Democrats have lost since 2010, they have still lost. This win did not give them a pickup. They didn't pick up a governor. They've lost 12 governorships since 2010. They didn't pick up any. This is one they held. All of this is a manufactured media narrative. This is a totally manufactured narrative against Trump, and it has no basis in fact. They're trying to create an attitude. They're trying to create the way people are thinking and feeling about this. They want people dispirited, depressed. They want Trump voters thinking that it's over, that it's run its course, not going to go anywhere. That's all this is. This election doesn't tell us anything. In fact, Trump held his vote. The percentage of Republicans that showed up to vote for Trump in 2016 is pretty similar to the Republicans that showed up to vote for Gillespie. Now, it may not be the same voters, but the point is that the percentage, the number of Republicans, percentage that showed up to vote in the presidential race is very close to the number that showed up to vote this week in the governor's race. So it'd be really, really hard to say that there's dispiritedness among Republican voters and that they're abandoning Trump. None of this happened. And, of course, these previous special elections you talk about, where the Democrats were supposed to win every one of them, and every one of those elections was going to be presented as America realizing its mistake, America standing up and demanding that Trump go away. Well, it didn't happen because they didn't win any of them. So now they've been forgotten. And this one is, they're trying to make something of it. It simply isn't. Look, a couple of stories here from Reuters. This is amazing. I should have mentioned this earlier. Trump's low approval rating masks his support among likely voters. This is a Reuters story on a Reuters poll. And it's unbelievable that they're this honest about it. And here's the bottom line. This is why I say this Virginia race didn't change anything. President Trump is more popular with likely voters than he is with the general public, according to a Reuters poll that underscores why Republican lawmakers have largely stuck with the quote-unquote polarizing president. They never referred to Obama, by the way, as polarizing, and he was just as polarizing as Trump. Do not doubt me, if not more so. The media just didn't report on the polarization that Obama inspired. The poll was released yesterday. It shows that Trump polls better among people who voted in 2016 than with the overall U.S. adult population. Well, that's what matters. A poll of likely voters versus the whole country? The whole country poll is irrelevant. Why are you going to ask people that don't vote? If you want to paint a picture other than what is the truth, you can do that. But among likely voters, Trump hasn't lost his approval number. He hasn't lost their support. So I keep telling you, and I can't believe Reuters published this. Then there is an opinion piece by David Harsanyi here at the Federalist headline, Republicans' Virginia loss tells us little about the state of American politics. And this has some really good stuff in it, too. It's exactly right. Virginia didn't change anything, folks. The Democrats held the seat before the election, and they didn't lose it. They didn't pick up a governorship. They didn't take anything away from the Republicans. They held on to what they had. There are two types of people who want us to think that there was a sea change among the Republicans over the last year. Liberals who want to paint all Republicans as a bunch of white supremacists and Trump populists. And then there are those trying to convince everyone that conservatism is dead, and neither of these things are true. Neither of them. Especially this old idea that conservatism is dead. The media is doing their best to convince people that, but it isn't. And, of course, the Republicans are not a bunch of white supremacists. The number of white supremacists wouldn't even fill a decent phone book or phone booth or what have you. So tomorrow's Open Line Friday. I'm going to hold these two and delve a little bit more into them detail-wise when we next get back together. All right, that's it, my friends, for our busy broadcast on Thursday. I thank you so much for being with us. Open Line Friday tomorrow, wrap up the week. Might have a few surprises, you never know. It just depends on how I feel. Either way, you will not regret being here, as you never, ever do. See you then.